that the words of davening are understood on these two levels, physically and what it represents in Avodah. This is elaborated on in a Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe. We actually have it in our curriculum. We learn this every 2 years. The Maimer is called Vanina Sati, and it's in Sefer HaMaimarim Tavshin Daled, 1944, from the Frierdiker Rebbe. And over there he gives a number of examples of how every bracha in the davening, he goes into Shemona Esrei mainly, how every bracha is understood literally and understood in the broader definition of what the words mean. And the same applies here to Malbish Harumin. Back to the Maimer. So he's explaining here that Torah is different than Tefillah. Torah is Momaylo Lamata. It's something which is given to us from above. But nevertheless, it still requires some effort from our end. What is the effort? There's two things. Number one, to truly succeed in Torah, we have to invest ourselves and really labor in Torah study. Like it says, Yogaiti Matsasi, if I worked hard and I found, meaning I achieved in Torah the time, and you can believe that person, because that's what's required. But there's another thing. So we're on page Kuf Gimel, and we're at the line that starts with the word Limtzei. It's about 14, 15 lines from the top.
Good.
So besides the fact that intellectually I can't really achieve what I need to in Torah unless I labor in Torah study, I really work hard, there's another thing. Learning Torah helps a person change his habits. Like the statement by our sages, you can't compare a person that studies and reviews his studies 100 times to someone who learns the Shena Pirka Meya Pamim Vechot, to someone who learns and studies and reviews his studies 101 times. Shenikra Ovid Elokim, that person has the title Ovid Elokim. He has the status of Ovid Elokim, which is like a verb. He is actively serving Hashem. The other one has a title of Eved. He is a servant. This one has a title that he's actively serving Hashem. And as explained in Tanya, famous Tanya, chapter 15, the Alter Rebbe explains that this is the reason for this, because he's changing his habit. In those days, they studied everything by heart. The oral Torah was literally studied orally. In order to remember it, they would review it many times. And many times means 100 times. So that means that when a person studied Torah, and I guess from the youngest of ages, that was the way they studied Torah. They reviewed everything they learned 100 times in the 4th grade, in the 5th grade, in the 6th grade, and so on and so forth. So it became part of their nature. It's natural for them, and it became their habit to review everything 100 times. When a person goes even one little bit beyond that and reviews the studies 101 times, then he's called David Elokim. And what is the key difference? That he was able to go beyond his nature. Beyond, now this is not a nature that he was born with, this is a habit. He got used to it by doing it year after year. For many years, it became something which is regulus. And to overcome that, that's the highest level of really serving Hashem. But this is through the Torah study. In Parshas Lech Lecha, this is Hashem speaking to Avraham Avinu, and here Avraham Avinu is starting his journey in serving Hashem, and Hashem says to him, Lech lecha, leave your land, leave your place of birth, and leave your father's home, and you'll go to the place that I will show you. That's the literal meaning of the words. The deeper meaning of the words are sheyetzim in the artziyas v'argila shaloi shezeh omelartecha midas tivim. That these words actually are alluding to go away means to overcome and to get out of your regulus, things that you have become a habit to do. And artecha means the land, meaning to say the materialism. Artecha means the midas, which are the natural midas, and you're used to acting in a certain way. And you have to be able to break out of that. There's another place where the Friedrich writes that people think if I'm born with a certain nature, it's very hard to change. But if it became a habit, okay, that means it's not really me. I just sort of got used to it, and I can get unused to it. But it's not so simple. Habits can become something that's so strong that it's just as difficult to uproot like something that I was born with. So the first thing Hashem told Avraham Avinu is, Lech lecha mi'artzecha, go out of your materialism. And the word meladetecha in Hebrew also can come from the word meaning things that you're used to doing. Midas ativya. Gam beis avicha, also leave the house of your father. We know that father and mother in Chassidus alludes to chachma and bina, to wisdom, to intellect. This is referring to the intellect, which is human intellect, not godly intellect. In Yiddish, it's called Veltach HaNachas, which means a certain perception of things, a certain way of looking at things, which is worldly, a worldly outlook. This is not the Torah outlook, but this is the worldly outlook. And being that I'm part of this world, I acquire that worldly outlook and look at things like everybody else around me. People don't have Torah. There are many things regarding what is considered appropriate, what is inappropriate, what is nice, and what is the opposite of nice. Following this worldly outlook, people take things that are in essence ugly, and they consider that beautiful. But they say this is etiquette. This is sort of our culture, the way we do things. And because of this, people do things that are not really honest. They say things that are not honest, do things that are really not true. Only saying things outwardly to make an impression. Everything that they do and what they say is to make an impression on the other person. Well, the problem, and there are times where because of this, they go a step further. We know that in Torah, flattery, for example, is considered a very negative character trait. It's deceptive to flatter someone. And basically, you're flattering that person because you want to get certain benefits from the person. So that's being deceptive. That's not true. And Torah, godliness is emes. But this is just the way of the world, and that's the worldly outlook, that this is acceptable. I guess it's a little bit similar to the term they use today, politically correct, which means it might not be correct. It might be wrong. It might be something which is the opposite of emes, but it's politically correct. And this becomes a way people conduct themselves. The Tamadabar who, and the reason for all this is people are following the natural and the things that they're used to doing. Beruba, but most of these things, him artzias v'chumrias bilvad. They're physical and material, not godly, not really consistent with Torah and Hashem. And therefore, Rish is Aveidahu Azivas Haragilus, to be able to let go of those habits and to do things that need to be done be'emes. Nasa Kli, and when a person studies Torah in such a way, like the one who learns 101 times, more than the 100 times, Nasa Kli, he becomes a pure vessel, Lamshachas Hagiluyim Shadei Torah, to draw down the light that's drawn down through Torah. So he has to purify the vessel. And purifying the vessel is by Lech Lecha Me'artzecha Me'uladetecha Be'savicha, stepping out of those habits that a person has, which takes him in the wrong direction. He's going to explain this a little bit further. What does it mean that these worldly things, that's not what makes me a vessel for godliness, and I have to be able to change that in order to get the godly light that's shining in the Torah. Hashem desired to have a dwelling place here, betachtenim, in the lower worlds. It's based on a pasuk. This is the famous medrash that Tanya and all of Chassidus revolves around, that the ultimate purpose of creation is that Hashem wanted a dwelling place in this world. Meshkosa, as it says, Sheik of Amudei Sheish, V'yisodim al Adnei Poz. And that pasuk has its meaning in the literal sense. But Omer Azal, our sages say that this is the deeper meaning. It's a metaphor for something deeper. As we know, the whole Shir HaShirim, which describes the love of a chassan and a kala, a husband and wife, is a metaphor for Hashem and the Yidden. So Sheikah comes from the word nishtekik, a desire. Zeh ha'olam, this alludes to the world, shenishtekik HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'vreisei, that Hashem desired to create it. And what does it mean? Amudei Sheish. Literally, it means pillars of marble. It means the world that was Nimrod was created the Shish Yom in the 6 days. And what does it mean? Yisodim al Adnei Poz, that the foundations is made out of gold, pure gold. Elu Parsha Sher Torah. This is referring to the Parshas of Torah, which are pure gold. So basically, Hashem created a world. And the world it was created in 6 days, but it stands on what's the foundation of the world is Torah. And it's written, Bereshis bara Elokim. In the beginning, Hashem created. The first Rashi of the entire Chumash says that the word Bereshis is, in essence, 2 words. Beis Reshis. There are 2 beginnings. The Yisrael Nikroim Reishis, Vateri Nikras Reishis. Rashi brings a pasuk where we say that the word Reishis is used to describe Bnei Yisrael. They're the first. And there's another pasuk that we find the word Reishis that describes the Torah. So there are 2 that are called Reishis. They're the first. What does it mean, the first? Actually, it says in the Medrash that there were 7 things that were created before the world. And then it says, and amongst these 7 things, there are 2 things that were created before all 7. And what are the 2 things? Bnei Yisrael and Torah. But when it says it was created before, it doesn't mean chronologically. In fact, we talked about this before Shavuos, because actually before the world was created, there wasn't even any concept of time. Time in itself is a creation, because time is only another dimension of how to measure space. Before the world was created, there is no space. And if there's no space, then there's no time. So what does it mean that these things were created before the world? Before means not chronologically, but it means it in terms of its purpose. These things came before creation. And because that was the purpose, it's like a person is building a house. Use this as an example. In Friday night davening, there's a line in the Chadaydi where we say, Seif Maisa b'machshava tchila. What comes out at the end of my action, in my thoughts, that came first. What does that mean? It means, for example, a person's building a house. So first they build a foundation in the ground, and then they put up a metal frame, and then they start building the walls, and they build the ceilings, and they build the floors, and they build all the details, and eventually you have the building completed, and this is an apartment house for people to live in. So chronologically, what came first were all the technical things of building the house. The opportunity to live in this house was the last thing to happen. But in thought, that came first. In other words, someone was thinking, I want to make a building for people to live in, and therefore we need to go through all these steps. Get a contractor, get an engineer, get an architect, start doing the building, buying a piece of land. But what came first, not all these things, what came first was the purpose. The ultimate purpose is a house to live in, and because of that, I went through the other steps. So it's interesting, the other steps actually came first. When we talk about creation, when we say that Torah and Yisrael are rashas, that first, it means first in its purpose. That this is the ultimate purpose why Hashem created the world. In order to fulfill that purpose and complete that purpose, everything else was created in a sense to facilitate Yisrael and Torah. The Tachlis HaKavanah Debriyas Ha'olam is the ultimate purpose of the creation of all the worlds, not just this physical world. So there's Atzilus and Bria and Yetzirah and Asiya. All the spiritual worlds were created that should be this physical world. And this physical world was created so that there should be Yidden learning Torah. So that means that all the infinite spiritual worlds and infinite spiritual levels that exist, and all the infinite angels and everything, the souls, everything that's going on in the entire creation, it's ultimately for this purpose, and therefore this was first. This is the ultimate purpose. And by us learning Torah in this world, observing mitzvahs, we're fulfilling the ultimate purpose of creation. As it says, Torah is light. So just like when there's no light, even though there's so much that it's in existence, but you can't really benefit from it properly because there's so much darkness. So the world without Torah is a dark world, and we can't really benefit from it. And we don't know where to go and what to do. But the Torah is light, and that guides us. And by learning Torah and following Torah, we're fulfilling the purpose of creation. And only then is the existence of the world solid and stable. The Mamar Asara, our sages said, Tanai hisna kodesh baruch hu im ma'aseh bereishis. The Torah speaks in metaphoric terms. So it says that Hashem, when he created the world, created on a condition. What was the condition? The condition was, he sort of said to the world like this: in the future, when the time comes, im yikaimu Yisrael as Torasi mutar. If the Yidden will accept my Torah, fine. U'bi'im lav chas v'sholem, and if they will not accept the Torah, achzir sa'olam l'tohu v'avayu. I will return this world back to nothingness, what it was originally. In that booklet that I gave you for Shavuos, it has the Gemara. And one of the things the Gemara talks about is a pasuk, a verse, that it says, Eretz Yara V'Shakata, which means the land or the world was fearful and it was calm. And the Gemara says, was it fearful or calm? They're two opposite things. And the Gemara says, initially, the world was fearful, was afraid. Since the world was created, it was created on a condition. And therefore, its entire existence was pending. If the Yidden will receive the Torah, Hashem will have the world in existence. If not, there won't be a world. So their existence was pending. When it came Shavuos, the 6th day of Sivan, and the Yidden said, Nasa v'nishma, they accepted the Torah, that's when the world became calm, because now they knew that its existence is permanent. So by us learning Torah, that brings the world to be solid and stable, because that's the ultimate purpose. And we could just add that just like this applies to the world at large, that the whole world is stable because it was created for the purpose of Torah. So by studying Torah and observing mitzvahs, that makes the world's existence solid and stable. It's also on a personal level. On a personal level, if I have Torah in my life, then my personal world is solid and stable. Then I have light that's guiding me, and I see clearly what is right, what is wrong, what I should pursue, what I should reject, and my world will be stable. And if chas v'shalom, a person doesn't follow Torah and mitzvahs in their own personal world, then that personal world is not so stable. Then he goes on to explain. So Torah is something which we study, but it's not just something that we study intellectually, but it guides us how to live, that the mitzvahs we observe and the way we live our life is consistent with the Torah. The mitzvah, the word mitzvah, literally mitzvah means a commandment. But the deeper meaning of mitzvah, it comes from the word tzavsa v'chiba, which means connection. When one person commands another person to do something, what happens is that it creates a bond between the one who's commanding and the one who's accepting the command. Let's look at this, how it is in the physical world. So one person to command another person, and the other person should respond to that and follow that, it's only by two people that have a positive relationship with each other. A father can tell his son what to do because he's the authority, he's the father of that child. Or a master and a servant, the master will tell the servant what to do. The same is when a person observes a mitzvah, and especially when he enhances the mitzvah by doing it properly, this indicates, and not only indicates, this sort of helps establish his kashrus ha-mitzvah el ha-mitzvah. It creates a bond between the one that's being instructed to the one that's giving the instructions. They become connected. You can't compare. There are different kinds of relationships. The relationship between a father and his child is one kind of relationship, and the relationship between a master and a servant is another kind of relationship. There are many levels in between. Generally speaking, yeshna hamayla atzmis v'banim she'enim ba'avodim. There's a certain mile and advantage in the relationship between children and parents over the relationship between a master and a servant. Naturally, the relationship between children and parents is an essential connection. In essence, they are connected. They're one. the child comes from the parents, and therefore the child and the father are one. When the father asks the child to do something and they do it to give their father pleasure, that enhances the bond. It reinforces that bond. But the bond is there naturally. On the other hand, a master and a servant, even a servant that's very loyal and dedicated and loves his master, but they are two separate people that are naturally not related. And this is a relationship that sort of came later. On the other hand, there's an advantage in the relationship of a servant to his master, which is in some ways greater than a child to a parent. And there's a certain maila in the avadim, the servants that are not by children, and that is in reference to Kabbalah Sale. A servant, a loyal servant, is just ready to do anything the master says. He's not questioning, he's not challenging, he doesn't need to really understand fully. In fact, he is very distant from the master intellectually. He's mainly heart, hands, and feet, which means dedication, loyalty, and unconditional loyalty. In a sense, that we can find with a servant even more than with a child. So therefore, each one has their advantage. But the common denominator in both, that by observing and following through with this instructions, with this command, the one who observes the command becomes bound up with the one who's giving the command. And he's giving pleasure to the one that commanded him, which is Hashem. Like it says, that Hashem says, I derive pleasure when I give you a mitzvah. I derive pleasure because you are fulfilling my wish. So now he's going to elaborate on, yes, any kind of observance of a mitzvah creates a bond between me and Hashem, but specifically when we understand that the main goal is for me to give Hashem pleasure. We'll soon explain that. Let's first read it inside. You do it, it's known. The mitzvahs have b'chinas ratzon ha'elyon. Mitzvahs are Hashem's will. This is Hashem's will. Hashem wants me to put on tefillin. Hashem wants me to observe Shabbos. V'ikra avedu b'kabbalah seil malchus shamayim. But primarily, even though there's a lot of meaning to it, and there's a lot of wisdom to it, and there's a lot of depth to it, but ultimately, to the real, true motivation to do the mitzvah should be accepting Hashem as Hashem, and my loyalty to Hashem, which is unconditional. I know the key, observing the Hashem's wish and will, which are the mitzvahs. The real motivation is not because of the reason, that I understand how beneficial this is and what it could accomplish. But because this is Hashem's will. Hashem asked me to do this. In other words, on the surface, there appears to be a difference between certain mitzvahs. There's certain mitzvahs that make a lot of sense, they're logical, and therefore I'm truly motivated to do them. And there are certain mitzvahs which we just don't get it. We don't understand. What's the point? Why is it necessary? What is it accomplishing? So if you observe mitzvahs because of the understanding and the logic behind it, then there'll be a difference between one mitzvah and another. This one I'll be more passionate about because I get it. And this mitzvah I'll be less passionate when I observe it because I don't really understand it. When a person's true motivation for doing mitzvahs is just to give Hashem pleasure and to allow myself to be bound with Hashem through this mitzvah, then it really makes no difference whether I do understand or don't understand. both are equally the same. I am very passionate because I know that doing this mitzvah, I'm doing what Hashem wants. And he says, we know that there are certain mitzvahs, the gam seichel anushim maskim aleim, that even human intellect agrees that this is a positive thing. Kibud ava'im, like honoring parents, that they're my parents, they're the ones who brought me into the world, they're the ones who raised me. So it makes perfect sense that I should honor them. Mitzvah like tzedakah, to reach out and help another person. These are all things that make sense. This is the way a moral human being should conduct himself. And the same with mitzvahs leisesa, the negative commandments, not to steal and not to harm someone else. That's one category of mitzvahs. V'yeshnam, then there's another category of mitzvahs, shem chukim, that these are things which we can't understand. K'may Pesach, tzitzis, chulu. Hashem is said to do this, but it's not something which logically makes sense that we have to live this way. But in truth, there's no difference between the two. Even those mitzvahs that are logical, make perfect sense. The real motivation should be because this is Hashem's will. In a sense, there's two reasons for that. One reason is when a person does the mitzvahs, because the logic behind it, in a sense, they're not really serving Hashem, they're serving themselves. We know there are many mitzvahs that could be explained. And in fact, today, when there's so much activity going on in reaching out, teaching people Torah, and trying to inspire people that are not observant to become observant, we do that by trying to explain to them the beauty of Shabbos, the beauty of kashrus, the beauty of family purity, and the same as with many other mitzvahs, to understand how this will enhance their lives. So when a person understands that, for example, observing the laws of family purity will enhance her marriage and will upgrade that marriage, will be so much deeper and better and happier than it was without observing those laws. So of course the person is motivated to do it, but in a sense, it's not necessarily on a deeper level, it's not serving Hashem, it's serving myself. I understand that this is for my benefits. You explain a person the beauty of Shabbos. You take one day a week, just stop everything you're doing, relax, stop thinking about your money and your issues and all the anxiety that it brings. Forget it. You take a total, complete vacation. And on this day, it's a calm day, a relaxed day, a peaceful day, and you sit down with your family, sit down by your table, you have a meal Friday night, you have a meal Shabbos day, you go for a walk, and all the beautiful things that happen on Shabbos. This will enhance your life. This will be something that will make you happier and make you more peaceful and make you more relaxed. And if a person understands that, it's interesting because there are so many tens of thousands of people that didn't keep Shabbos. And initially when they heard about it, they said, that's impossible. Are you talking about 24 hours? Not to pick up the phone, not to go shopping, not to carry something outside, not to get into a car. This is impossible. It's inconceivable. The same people, after they go to classes, they're learning, they're understanding. Of course, it takes time, a year or two or three. And later, they're saying, Shabbos, this is only Hashem in his infinite brilliant wisdom could have thought of such a thing like Shabbos. When Sunday comes, I can't wait for Shabbos to come up. And this is the same person that just thought a few years ago that it was inconceivable to live that way because they understand the benefits. But in a certain way, if I'm doing the mitzvah because I really get those benefits, I got it, in a sense, I'm serving myself. Where is this serving Hashem? When a person serves Hashem because of Kabbalah's oil, which means I'm doing it to give, I know this is what Hashem wants. It doesn't matter why Hashem wants it. As long as I know this is what he wants and this gives him pleasure, this gives me pleasure. that kind of observance, that mode of observance is really connecting to Hashem. And therefore it makes no difference, even if it's something which is understood, it makes perfect sense. Like it says there, honoring parents, not to steal, to be honest, to give tzedakah, to help other people. It's important to also feel that way and to have that nature. But ultimately, the reason why I'm doing it is because this gives Hashem pleasure. That's number one. The second reason is, if a person's motivation to serve Hashem is because they understand the benefits and it makes sense to them, their observance is going to be limited. Because ultimately they're going to hit against the wall somewhere of something that doesn't make sense, or certain details don't make sense. And then they're going to be struggling with observing that mitzvah because I don't understand it. In fact, to me, it appears to be that it would be better not to do this, or better to do this in a different way. So when a person's observance of mitzvahs is based on Kabbalah's oil, which is unconditional loyalty to Hashem, it really makes no difference. Yes, I'll try to learn, I'll try to understand, I'll try to make sense of it as much as I can, which will add, but the basis of my observance is loyalty to Hashem. But if the basis is the seichel, the logic, then there's so many things in Torah that we can't explain and we can't understand. And in fact, there are many people like that. They're intellectuals, and that's how they approach Torah. And therefore, they sort of pick and choose certain things they do, and certain things they're not so much into it because they don't really get it. So therefore, he says how important it is to observe mitzvahs because this gives Hashem pleasure, and through this, I'm creating a bond between me and Hashem. Now he concludes, but in order to observe mitzvahs properly, you must study Torah. Why? First of all, you can't observe the mitzvahs without studying Torah, because how are you going to know what to do and how to do? And he gives an example. Nimtzu kama anashim, there are many people, shame, they're really true God-fearing people. They're God-fearing, so they want to do the right thing. But but they're lacking the knowledge of the laws, and especially the details of the laws. Regarding davening, for example, they don't know, where are you allowed to interrupt to say Amen, Amen Yeshmei Rabbah, and therefore they make mistakes. Not because they're not God-fearing, because they don't have the knowledge. Prate dinim, another example is, prate dinim b'zeh b'chein netilas yadayim. You have to wash your hands before eating bread, but there are halachas how to wash your hands, what kind of water is acceptable, what's not acceptable, the vessel that you use to wash the water, how you're supposed to wash the water. The inyan is b'shmir Shabbos, the same thing with Shabbos. We know there are 39 halachas, but there are gazillion details of halachas in Shabbos. So therefore, I want to observe Shabbos. I'm a God-fearing Jew, but I'm going to be making mistakes. I'm violating Shabbos just because of lack of knowledge. So first of all, it's important to study Torah if you want to observe mitzvahs. But the second thing is, when a person studies Torah as an individual, and especially when you study Torah in a group altogether, there's another thing that's accomplished. Gilui Ur Elyam Umayla. Torah brings with it a godly light, Shepelis Eirus, and that inspires a person because it's something godly. It inspires my godly soul, and the person feels uplifted, and the person feels inspired. The shanes is activities v'regila shalei. He becomes inspired to become a more refined person and to change his habits. As man wird anders, and by doing that, he acquires positive character traits. So ultimately, the purpose of Torah is to become a more refined person, a more humble person, a more caring person, more sensitive person. And if we find a person that's studying Torah and they don't have all these qualities, in fact, they're angry or arrogant or selfish, how could that be? Is because they're not really absorbing that light in the Torah. They're taking the shell without the godly light in it. They're just taking the intellectual part of Torah, and they're not allowing the godly light to penetrate and permeate them. So therefore, when a person learns Torah properly, knowing that this is Hashem's Torah, and especially when you learn in a group, then that light of Hashem is even a greater light, is the light of the 13 attributes of mercy, and that helps a person not only have the knowledge, but to refine themselves and refine their character traits. And that's the ultimate purpose. Okay, we'll stop here at the end of Gimel.
Rabbi Majeski, there's a question here in the comments. I don't know if you want to start with it next time.
Let me see if it's something that needs more time, then we'll do it tomorrow. If not, I can do it now for a moment.
How do we have Kabbalah's all without feeling resentful?
How do we have Kabbalah Sel without feeling resentful? That's a good question. But the reason why a person could be resentful of having this unconditional loyalty can only be because I don't really appreciate the loyalty to Hashem. So if somebody, for example, imposes their authority over you and says you have to do this and this, and you really don't want to, and you don't appreciate the relationship, then of course you'll be resentful. So I guess in order to not be resentful, what it requires is for me to learn more about Hashem, how Hashem is my source of life. Hashem is not interference in my life. On the contrary, the closer I am with Hashem, the more I'm connected to Hashem, the more it'll enhance my life, and the more it will contribute to my happiness in life. If a person understands that, then they won't resent the relationship, they would be excited and happy and thank Hashem every moment for that relationship. Which basically means to learn more Chassidus. And if you learn Chassidus and it's not working, it means to learn more Chassidus. And if that's not working, that means to learn even more Chassidus. Ultimately, if you learn enough about Hashem, you will come to have that appreciation.
Okay.
All the best. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.